introduce Emily. Emily was diagnosed with MS at age 15. So she's been living with MS for 3 years now. She's a senior in high school, but she's known about MS for much longer. Her dad was diagnosed with MS when she was 2 years old. She's been participating in the MS 150 bike ride since she was 2 years old.
First grade.
Well, first grade?
First grade.
Nice.
Oh, okay. a little bit off there. But Emily is the winner of the Upper Midwest Chapter 2012 Youth Volunteer Award and also the 2014 Activist of the Year. She's gone beyond in her efforts to end the disease for herself, for her dad, and for her MS family. She's made significant contributions to the society programming for young people and for a variety of fundraising events. With that, I'd like Emily to come up and tell you a little bit about her story.
Thank you, Joe. Can I ask, how many of you guys know someone who lives with MS? Very large number. Well, let's see, I'll get this to work. Oh.
Press it again.
The right arrow.
There we go. I don't remember the day my dad was diagnosed with MS. I was too young. I do remember at age 3 or 4 standing at the finish line of the MS 60/30 shouting, "Way to go!" or "Congratulations!" as the bikers rode past. I felt so important giving all those adults high fives. I didn't really know what was going on, but I knew it was important. I remember learning how to set up an IV for my dad's steroids at age 5. My older sister Jessica and I both learned how to draw the medicines and properly connect the tubes to dad's port in his arm. I knew this was important because not a lot of my friends got to help their dads like this and help to be able to help make him feel better. I remember learning how to knit when I was 6. I loved to knit stuffed animals, sweaters, blankets, and other little projects I could make. This sweater is one that I made when I was in 2nd grade. I remember stepping on MS Ugly Buglies with my sister and school friends at the MS 150 bike ride.
Yeah.
Age 7. We competed in the poetry contest that year, and since we were kids, we kind of had that cute factor, so we won that contest. And again, I was really starting to understand why this was so important. There were a lot of people at this event, all working together, cheerful and having fun, even with such a bad disease. I remember unloading the refrigerator truck at the Moose Lake, Minnesota rest stop. My friend and I passing the entire contents of the truck to waiting volunteers on the ground. Now, not only did I feel important, but I felt super important and strong because I was passing these huge boxes of food and bags of food to the adults. They were counting on me to do my job so they could do theirs. That was awesome. I remember learning to look at Dad's MRI images and knowing what MS lesions looked like when I was 9. I remember countless pieces of pizza, plenty of paper plates, and perfect cookies. I can't think of a word for cookies that starts with P. That was when I was 11. I actually preferred to hang out with the adults so that I can really make a difference to the riders and volunteers. And by this age, I fully understood what MS was all about and why these events were so important. They'd become important to me because I knew so many people living with MS, and they were now my friends. And this was a way I knew of that I could help them. I remember delivering lunches to dedicated ham radio operators with my mom on the MS tram at age 12. I remember the tingling in my fingertips at age 14 that led to an entirely tingly body, difficulty walking, dizziness, and vision trouble. This was scary and uncomfortable. I was worried about what it all meant. I had to stop knitting because the yarn was hurting my fingers. Instead, I started making sock monkeys, and I kind of became known as the monkey girl. Because I made 200 of these. I remember the spinal tap that was so painful, time in the hospital, nurses who weren't accustomed to giving a child such high doses of steroids, and playing piano for my neurologist, Dr. K, in the teen room at the hospital. Mom and Dad stayed with me during those hospital visits and used their knowledge of Dad's MS to help me through these crazy and scary symptoms. None of the tests led to a diagnosis of any kind. So some doctors told me it was teenage anxiety. No. Others told me it was acute disseminated encephalomyelitis. And others told me it was clinically isolated syndrome. In other words, they had absolutely no idea what was going on with me. I remember my mom driving me to school for lunch when I was in 8th grade. I was too weak and tired to go to class, but my parents, my doctors, and my teachers all felt it was important for me to be with my friends. I remember sleeping for hours after those 30-minute lunch breaks. It took so much energy to be there, and I missed almost all of my classes in 8th grade. As fate would have it, I was actually a year ahead of the 8th grade curriculum, so it didn't set me behind my peers to miss that much school. I remember hours with Holly, Megan, Sarah, and Katie, my physical and occupational therapists, who remain my greatest cheerleaders. And they're pretty goofy too. I love them and will always remember them. They gave me the tools to keep moving forward and looking forward in my life. They were like big sisters to me, catching up on my social life, wanting to know about school, and just keeping my spirits up. They're much more to me than just physical and occupational therapists. I remember going on my 8th grade class trip and wanting to participate in everything. This picture was taken me on the high ropes course. I made sure to take the easiest route, but I still got really, really dizzy. I had never been afraid of heights or reacted this way, but my brain registered that there was nothing below my feet, except for a thin log, actually, 2 logs in this picture. I remember being so scared because I had felt dizziness for so long and it had gone away, and I was afraid that it had come back. Thankfully, it only lasted a couple of hours and I was able to join the group again. I remember severe pain in my chest on my 15th birthday. Happy birthday to me. Yes, it felt like what some would describe as heart attack pain, so I did need to get a full set of tests from the pediatric cardiologist. My heart was perfect. My brain was the not-so-perfect organ. I remember November 18th, 2011, when I went in for an MRI and brought a copy of the disc home to look for myself. I remember seeing a new lesion and knowing I have MS. Remember, I learned how to read Dad's scans 6 years before. My mom had to make a secret and urgent phone call to the doctor to let him know what I knew and asked to get a radiology report as quickly as possible. I remember Matt, our MS nurse, showing me how to give myself daily injections that would hopefully prevent further lesions. I sat stoically in front of him as he carefully and methodically and empathetically went through the process step by step. I hated that day. I was angry and scared and I wanted to run. I later learned that Matt went to his office and wiped tears away after that visit. I remember the tears in my dad's eyes as he gave me that first shot of Copaxone. He was saying, "I'm so sorry we didn't find a cure fast enough." It was really hard for him that day. I remember welts on my legs and arms and bruises on my stomach from the injections. I tried all the tricks to reduce the side effects, but I was a younger person taking an adult drug, and they just don't work the same for kids. I remember intense nerve pain in my chest, arms, and legs. Nothing helps that pain at times. Then I remember meeting Damon, Alicia, Rachel, and Amber in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, kids my age living with MS. I remember making an awesome video with them about being a normal teen with an MS twist. I remember the MS Society asking me to be the Bike MS ambassador and to share my story on the news, with corporations, with whoever would listen. I remember being afraid to tell people that I had MS because I didn't want to be known as that sick kid. So many of my friends who knew I was sick in 8th grade started treating me like a baby. saying things like, "Oh, honey, how are you feeling today?" They used to be my best friends, but I got tired feeling like I was much lesser than them. I agreed to be the Bike MS ambassador. I agreed to be the Bike MS ambassador, and a promotional video was created a few weeks later. My school holds monthly assemblies to share announcements, play games, and other informational activities. I decided to make an announcement about the MS Walk to recruit people for my team. I showed the video and then walked on stage, a freshman in high school, in front of 350 of my peers and teachers. And as the video finished, I went up and explained a little bit more about MS. I finished by saying, "I'm not looking for your sympathy, I'm just asking for your support." And to my surprise, everyone burst into applause, and I was never treated like that sick kid. Instead, everyone had a better understanding of why I was absent so much and why I had special accommodations, like being able to turn assignments in late. I had students coming up to me just to shake my hand, and I had some students even hand me a $20 bill as a donation. I remember creating monkey pins and selling them as a fundraiser at my school and other locations. I have some right here. I'm going to get this bag open. If you'd like one, you can come find me and I'll give you one. But just as the monkeys link arms, if you think of the Barrel Monkeys game, just as the monkeys link arms, we should all link together to fight MS. I remember how empowered I felt to share my story. I wanted to tell the world so that someone, somewhere, who might have the answers, knew that I was waiting for the cure. This was something I could really do to make a difference, to help people, and my dad, and myself. I remember hosting the Golden Gears Perks table on the MS 150, and people remembering me from year to year, seeking me out to give me life-affirming hugs and to just check in. We all worked so hard and had some of the best times as a family. This was the Best Buy team that came and found me a couple of years ago and said, "We want to get a group picture with you."
This year we built one with the Toro team.
Come find me in Finlayson. I remember missing after-school activities and friend gatherings because I was too tired to go. I remember a robot my sister found for me, held a fundraiser behind my back, and delivered to me on Valentine's Day 2013. This robot can sit in the classroom for me while I Skype with my teachers and classmates. I can drive the robot to the lunchroom to socialize from the comfort of my bedroom when I'm too tired to go to school. I remember the day I could stop giving myself injections and instead pop a pill twice a day. Hallelujah. I remember attending the public policy conference with Bill, Dan, Holly, Maureen, and others from our chapter. We share stories with legislators, and I was hooked. Telling my story made a difference. I did it again with state officials in May, and again this past March. And how awesome is that? I remember Minnesota Representative Rod Hamilton speaking at a Capitol function unrelated to MS and sharing his MS story. When I shared that I too had MS, he was left speechless. We've since become mutual admirers of each other, checking in from time to time. I remember hosting an MS Awareness Day at my high school last April. My principal agreed to hold an hour-long all-school assembly so that I could explain and demonstrate what MS is. There was a relay race, a couple of videos, trivia with prizes, and over 50 students wore orange that day. The cook also made a completely orange lunch, which wasn't easy to do. I remember attending Teen Adventure Camp in July 2014. I met 25 other teenagers my age living with MS. I remember we could talk for hours and we never had to explain our disease to each other. We just knew. I remember my new brothers and sisters from this camp and love each and every one of them for the battle they are fighting and the full lives they are living. About a year ago, I was looking on Facebook and I met a girl who lives in North Carolina. She was diagnosed with MS when she was 4 years old, and then she was 16